Don't forget about the banquet tonight. Stan called out as my wife rushed out the door. It's really important for my career. Don't worry, I'll be there. I promise, I assured him. After finishing my porridge, I rinsed the dishes, placed my phone on the table, and headed upstairs to change into my comfortable golf attire. Grabbing my golf clubs and shoes, I tossed them into the car and set off, planning to meet a couple friends at a course in Stown, about 100 miles away. Our tee time was scheduled for 11:30 a.m., and the weather was perfect for a crisp autumn day. Some things in life just couldn't be bought. We wrapped up our round around 3:30 p.m. and decided to grab a bite at the clubhouse. It had been years since I last saw Jack and Steve, two of my old college buddies, so we spent time catching up over food. One thing led to another, and after eating, we agreed to play a few extra holes. We were having such a great time that we completely lost track of time, finishing just as the sun dipped below the horizon. That was incredible, Jack said with a grin as we packed up. Do you have to head out right away, or can you stick around for another drink? Stan, have I ever turned down a drink? Especially from such generous losers. I chuckled, laughing. We made our way to the bar, clinking glasses and reminiscing about our glory days. As the night stretched on, I found myself thinking how much I missed hanging out with them. I made a mental note to see them more often, but as I drove home, my mood slowly started to shift. The closer I got, the more I could already picture Bry's reaction. She was going to be furious. I'd have to find a way to calm her down. I smirked to myself, realizing I was already bracing for the storm. The moment I stepped into the living room, I was met with a glare sharper than any golf swing. Where the hell have you been? Bry demanded, arms crossed tightly. I told you this banquet was important to me. You promised you'd be there by 6. Sorry, darling, I said, scrambling for an excuse. The boss needed me downtown, and traffic was terrible. I just got back. Bry's eyes narrowed. I spoke to Tom, she countered. He was home by 6:30. He said you took the day off, and you left your phone on the kitchen table, so I couldn't even call you. My stomach dropped. Caught. You're a terrible liar, she snapped, and a pathetic golfer. Well, now that we've cleared that up, I said, shrugging dramatically, I'm exhausted. Can we call it a night? Bry's eyes flashed with fury. You just admitted you lied to me. How about telling me the truth for once? I sighed, then smirked. All right, you got me. The real story? I was kidnapped. Pirates hijacked my car and took me to a warehouse for ransom. Then, out of nowhere, aliens showed up and beamed me onto their ship. They experimented on me, stuck probes in my teeth, my eyes, and other places. Bry's face went blank. When they finally left the room, I managed to untie myself. I continued, figured out how to fly their spaceship, but, oops, I crashed in Scranton. I had to hitchhike with a trucker to get my car back. But don't worry, I'm fine. Just a little tired. She stared at me in complete disbelief, too angry to even find words for a moment. What the hell are you talking about? She finally sputtered. Stop making up these ridiculous stories and tell me why you really missed the banquet. You know how much it meant to me. I sighed, finally surrendering. I was playing golf with Jack and Steve. I admitted, old college friends. We played a few rounds, grabbed a couple of drinks, and lost track of time. At first, they were winning, but I came back strong and crushed them with a 30-foot putt on the 7th hole. After that, I kept dominating. This new putter I got? Absolute magic. I even hit a few shots over 300 yards. Bry's face twisted in disbelief. Golf? She repeated, her voice laced with anger. You knew this banquet was crucial, and you chose to play golf instead? I had no defense. You planned this, didn't you? She pressed, her voice rising. And then you had the audacity to lie and say you'd be there? Did you really think I wouldn't notice your empty chair? I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling. I didn't want to hurt you, I admitted quietly. Bry let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You didn't want to hurt me? She echoed, shaking her head. Stan, lying to me was 1,000 times worse. And with that, the room fell into a suffocating silence. I wouldn't be upset if you had just told me the truth, Brandy said, her voice laced with disappointment. I stood there, feeling the weight of my choices settle over me. Too late. I realized how foolish I'd been. I never intended to hurt you. I admitted. At the time, it just felt like a harmless escape, something fun and exciting. It wasn't meant to be personal. It was just golf. Brandy narrowed her eyes. Are you drunk? Or did you and your old college buddies decide to relive your youth with a few joints? She snapped. Because you sound completely out of your mind. She exhaled sharply, crossing her arms. I'm too exhausted to deal with your selfish behavior tonight. You can sleep in one of the old nursery rooms. I don't want you near me, and I don't want to hear a word from you for a while. Understood, dear. I'll be as quiet as a church mouse, I replied, trying to lighten the mood. Brandy shot me a glare as if I were a stranger she couldn't quite place. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away. With a sigh, I made my way to Brian's old room. After 24 years of marriage, Brandy and I were still adjusting to life as empty nesters now that both our kids were off at college. As soon as I lay down, exhaustion took over, and I drifted into a deep sleep, mumbling to myself in my dreams. The next morning, I was dressed for work, sipping coffee and flipping through the newspaper when Brandy walked into the kitchen. Don't think this is over, Stan, she warned, her voice firm. I don't know how, or even if you can make up for yesterday. That's something you'll have to figure out for yourself. She grabbed her bag. I'll be working late tonight, so you can start your penance by making your own dinner. No problem, sweetheart. I can fend for myself, I said, not bothering to look up from my paper. Have a good time. Brandy frowned. What do you mean, have a good time? She asked, confused. I shrugged. Just, have a good day. Don't worry about me. And hey, watch out for wooden nickels, I added casually. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head before shaking her head and heading out the door. As soon as she left, I reached for the phone and dialed work. Hey, I'm not feeling great today. I think I'll stay home, I told them. With the entire day to myself, I decided to do something I'd been thinking about for a while. After wandering through a few stores, I finally found exactly what I wanted at Best Buy. A massive flat-screen TV, the biggest they had. I paid for it and had it delivered the same day. By the time the delivery guys finished setting it up, it was just in time for the evening news. The screen was so enormous I could see every tiny detail, even the anchorwoman's cleavage in high definition. The TV was so big it practically took up an entire wall and even blocked part of the closet door. But to me, it was worth it. Feeling triumphant, I called a few guys from work and invited them over to watch the first game of the World Series. We ordered pizza and ribs from a place down the street, grabbed a few beers, and settled in for the night. Then Brandy walked in. Her eyes widened as she took in the gigantic television and the group of men lounging in her living room. Before she could say a word, Harry, our accountant, stood up and extended a hand. Brandy, congratulations on the promotion. That's incredible. And this TV, wow. Stan, you're a lucky man to have a wife like her. Thank you very much, I said, grinning. Brandy hesitated, clearly thrown off. I'm really tired, so I'll leave you guys to it, she said, turning toward the stairs. I'm going to bed. As she disappeared, I thought maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as mad as I had feared. The next morning, I was once again at the kitchen table, flipping through the newspaper when Brandy walked in. You're getting that monstrosity out of here, she said flatly. Take it back to the store before I get home from work tonight. I didn't even glance up. I hear you, honey. No need to yell, I replied with a smirk. The door slammed so hard behind her that I was surprised the windows didn't shatter. That evening, as I relaxed on the couch watching Cheers, Brandy stormed into the living room. I thought I told you to return that thing today, she fumed. You said you heard me. You said I didn't need to yell. And yet here it is, still in our living room. What part of that didn't you understand? I sighed and looked up at her, mildly irritated. I've never understood why Norm is on this show. I mused. He's not even that funny. Brandy's face turned crimson. For a moment, she was too furious to even form words. Stan, She finally managed, her voice shaking with frustration. I told you to return the TV, and you just ignored me. I leaned back against the couch, offering a casual smile. I didn't buy it just to return it, sweetheart. I said, I like it, and I'm keeping it. Brandy exhaled sharply, her fists clenched. So you understood exactly what I said earlier. You just decided it didn't matter? I gave her an easy shrug. No, I said, I understood you perfectly. The issue here isn't that I didn't understand. It's that you really didn't think I'd go against you, did you? I said, watching Brandy's expression freeze in shock. She hadn't expected this. She was always in control, always the one calling the shots. But this time, I had defied her, and she clearly didn't know how to respond. What's gotten into you, Stan? She finally asked, her voice laced with disbelief. First, you skip an important event with some lame excuse, and now you go out and buy an enormous, overpriced TV without even talking to me? Are you feeling all right? I feel great, sweetheart. I replied evenly. I knew that if I asked, you'd say no. So I skipped the argument and just went ahead with it. Saves us both the headache, don't you think? It does hurt, Stan. Brandy snapped, frustration flaring in her voice. This thing is way too big for the space. We can't even move around it properly. You spent a ridiculous amount of money on something that doesn't even fit in our house. And you didn't think to run it by me first? How could you not see a problem with that? I sighed, finally conceding. All right, I get it. I should have considered your feelings before making the purchase. Can you return it? She asked, arms crossed tightly. Yes, I nodded. Good, she said. I want it gone tomorrow. Not Monday, tomorrow. I'll handle it, I promised, though I had no real intention of following through. Brandy exhaled, rubbing her temples. I have to work tomorrow afternoon. I hate working weekends, but it's part of the deal with my promotion. Just, please, take care of it while I'm gone. I nodded again, but as soon as she left, I turned my attention back to the screen. The program wasn't even that interesting, but I kept watching anyway. By Saturday afternoon, I had made different plans. Instead of dealing with the TV, I called Brandy's parents and invited them to lunch. We met at a small cafe, where I also introduced them to Cindy Walsh, who had been waiting for me. Cindy looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. I wondered briefly if she was managing all right. Brandy's parents, however, barely acknowledged her presence. They were far more interested in the free meal I had treated them to. At around 3 o'clock, we followed Cindy back to her house. After parking in her driveway, she led us into her impeccably decorated living room. A moment later, Cindy walked over to a security panel and pressed a few buttons. Suddenly, an alarm blared, filling the room with the shrill sound of sirens. An automated voice commanded all intruders to vacate the premises immediately. Before any of us could react, the front door swung open violently. Standing there, gripping a baseball bat, was Cindy's husband, Charles. And he was completely naked. Not only that, he was in a state of semi-arousal. His wild eyes darted between us, unrecognizing and hostile. He tightened his grip on the bat, raising it threateningly. Get the hell out of my house before I smash your skulls in, he bellowed, cocking the bat back for a swing. I was just about to step in when a scream cut through the tension. Mom? Dad? Stan? What are you all doing here? We turned to see Brandy standing in the hallway, clutching a bedsheet around her body, eyes wide with panic. Cindy, calm as ever, folded her arms. I invited him here, she said, stepping forward, for a little entertainment. Brandy looked mortified, her face drained of color. Cindy smirked. See, Charles is terrible at covering his tracks. The second I had to leave for Philadelphia this weekend, I knew he'd take the opportunity to sneak around. And I had a strong feeling it would be with you, Mrs. Burns. Brandy's parents stood there in stunned silence. I simply nodded at them, then turned to Cindy and extended a hand. She shook it, her grip firm. Glancing over at Charles, still clutching the bat like a fool, I finally turned back to Brandy. Notre Dame's playing tonight, I said casually, and I don't want to miss it on my big screen. When you're done here, you'll be taking your parents home, right, Brandy? Brandy swallowed hard, unable to speak. I'm sure they won't mind waiting a little while. I continued. I'll keep them entertained during the commercial breaks. But I'm afraid it won't be with the TV. By the time the game ended, Brandy had returned home. I carried her clothes into the living room and dropped them in a heap on the floor. She hesitated at the doorway, her face crumpling as she took in the sight of her belongings scattered across the room. "Stan, please don't do this," she whispered, her voice thick with desperation. "It was just an affair, nothing more. I never meant to hurt you. You weren't supposed to find out. You were supposed to trust me." I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "We spent too many years together for you to just throw it all away like this," I said, my voice steady. Brandy's eyes flickered to the empty chair in the corner of the room. That damn empty chair. This marriage had been everything to me, and she had destroyed it. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I love you, not him," she pleaded. "Maybe you do," I said. "Maybe you don't, but it doesn't matter anymore." She let out a quiet sob, her whole body trembling. "You were furious when I skipped your event," I continued, keeping my voice level. "It was important to you, and I let you down. But now, you've gone and slept with your boss. Isn't that just a little worse than me wasting time on a round of golf?" Brandy covered her face with her hands. "I'm suffering, Stan," she whispered. "You have no idea. My father called me every name in the book. He thinks I'm disgusting. And I can't even face Charles at work anymore. Please, can't we just move past this?" I sighed. "Your affair isn't something I can just forget about, Brandy," I said. "I've watched you lie to me, disrespect me, deceive me. I've seen who you really are, and I can't live with a person like that." She looked away, shoulders shaking, knowing there was nothing left to say. I gestured to her things. "Take your bags, Brandy," I said simply. "My lawyer will be in touch on Monday." As she stood frozen in place, I added one final remark. "The TV stays." "You don't,"